It makes you cognizant about how your body functions through the mind's eye.
Mm.
So we have, life has its way and it bombards us with information. Our senses take in this information and then we respond to it, whether we realize it or not. It's much like how when we take in food, so we consume food and metabolizes and then we eliminate. Well, every single solitary thing we do in life has that framework.
Right.
We take this information in through our eyes, our ears, our skin, whatever. We process that information. It has an effect on us, and then we have a response.
Right.
For most human beings, we are very, very unaware of the effect and our response until it's already over. And then we're like, oh, crap, I probably shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Or why is that bothering me so much? What yoga does, and if you have a regular practice, it kind of forces you to look, oh, this is really affecting me in this way, and I need to pay attention to that. I have to take responsibility for this reaction.
Yeah.
That's the part, the responsibility that you end up taking for yourself.
Erika Tenenbaum,
Yes.
you work as a yoga instructor,
Yes.
and you also teach a form of yoga therapy. Is that correct?
I teach yoga therapy. Yes, I'm an educator of yoga therapists and yoga teachers, and I also do have my private work as a yoga therapist and a yoga teacher.
You have your own practice and your own school?
Not school, no brick and mortar, not any longer. The COVID pushed a situation, there's the light and shadow side to so many different things. And the light side to the COVID for my world was that I had been wanting to go online with some of my yoga teacher and teaching and yoga therapy that to work with one-on-one because this avenue of online was available. And I thought, okay, let's get that going. But we were a brick and mortar and I was just used to the situation and I was comfortable in the situation, didn't think about it. But then of course, COVID hit and then there's this Zoom thing. I wasn't even aware of that. And before we knew it, we were doing education online and I had a whole business beginning, finally doing that online yoga therapy training and teacher and counseling that I've been wanting to do.
Okay. And so how long have you been practicing yoga in general? What got you started and what was going on back then?
Back then, indeed. So 2000, in the year 2000,
Okay.
It all began. I started teaching in 2003. And what got me there was just sheer kind of lost, not quite sure what was going on. I needed to connect with my body. I was disconnected. So many of us have this disconnect in all different parts of ourselves. And I had no understanding of what even any of that meant. And I remember a friend came to me and she said, I'm going to this yoga class. Do you want to join me? And I thought, why not? And I showed up on a Sunday morning, chewing gum, wearing sneakers, not knowing what was going on. And finally, the teacher just said, no gum, no sneakers. And right there, I enjoyed that, the no shoes part of it. And within about 10 minutes of the yoga practice, I was sweating profusely, completely shocked. My whole entire nervous system didn't know what was going on. The way the teacher was speaking, the way that I felt after the class, the way that I was thinking and remembering the moves and the language of the teacher. And I was just like, what the hell is going on here? What is this?
Interesting.
And it was stuck. It was like having daydreams about it. like
Yeah.
not even realizing that I was thinking about these different moves my body was making. And then little by little, I kept going more and more. And then eventually I understood.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know even more so. So that's when I wanted to go into teacher training.
Excellent. Yeah. And that's so you didn't really know what to expect when you went for the first class. Just that it was.
Had I known that, if I was feeling what I felt in my first down dog, and if somebody would have warned me and said, this is what it's going to feel like,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have gone. I was better off not knowing.
Yeah. And what do you remember? What type it was?
Oh, yeah. It was heated power
Heated
yoga.
power yoga.
It was,
Nice.
I walked into the bowels of hell and had no idea, essentially.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of sweating.
Oh my God.
Lots of
First
movement.
down dog. I remember just being in my first down dog and it's just dripping from
Yeah.
my forehead. And actually, I years later, when I was working for a studio that used to write a local magazine, and I was writing articles for the local magazine. My very first article was based on that downward facing dog from my very first class and
Excellent.
the experience of that. Yeah.
Wow. How about that? Yeah, it probably
Mhm.
taught you quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, could you elaborate on the methods of yoga, what yoga is, where it comes from, and the benefits?
Oh, wow. Sure. Well, what yoga is, that's a big statement. I'll do it like it's teacher training 101 kind of stuff. When you know something so big, it's hard to
Yeah.
narrow it
Zoom.
down. Yeah, exactly. To take that, to refine that term. Literally, yoga means union. If you were to look up the text definition of the word yoga, means to yoke or unite. And I realized over the years, it's the bringing together, back to what I said earlier about we're severed in different parts. It brings together, it bridges that gap in so many parts of the systems of our body. So yoga helps to unite mind and body, sun and moon. We can get really flowery about it and we can get really hippy dippy with it. But really what it comes down to is uniting that big crevasse that most of us has between the language and the conversation our mind has with our body and our body has with our mind. And that's probably the number one benefit of yoga, is that unity when you're ready for it.
Right.
That's the part that most people don't realize. You don't want to be a overly stressed person, maybe haven't been doing very much with your body for many years, really sedentary, and then all of a sudden face yourself on a yoga mat. It's actually quite shocking.
Yeah.
As in my first downward facing dog,
Right.
that I couldn't believe what that felt like, to be in these very, very odd positions. This is not normal for us to bend like this and to twist and to, that's not how we normally live. So we usually stand up, sit down, or lie down. These multidimensional ways of movement brought so much mobility to the body as well as to the mind body connection. And that's probably the easiest way and the most succinct way I could say what the benefits of yoga are.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you acknowledge what's going on inside.
Yeah.
And that's also the hard part.
I really liked how you said it unites the different parts of the body as a yoke, as a joiner.
Yeah.
It makes you more cognizant of your body as a whole and how it functions together as a whole.
It makes you cognizant about how your body functions through the mind's eye. So we have, life has its way and it bombards us with information. Our senses take in this information and then we respond to it, whether we realize it or not. It's much like how when we take in food. So we consume food, it metabolizes, and then we eliminate. Well, every single solitary thing we do in life has that framework.
Right.
We take this information in through our eyes, our ears, our skin, whatever. We process that information. It has an effect on us, and then we have a response.
Right.
For most human beings, we are very, very unaware of the effect and our response until it's already over. And then we're like, oh, crap, I probably shouldn't have said that. Yeah. Or why is that bothering me so much? What yoga does, and if you have a regular practice, it kind of forces you to look, oh, this is really affecting me in this way, and I need to pay attention to that. I have to take responsibility for this reaction.
Yeah.
that's the part, the responsibility that you end up taking for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer about anybody else.
Right. It really brings the focus back to who you are, what your abilities are, and what you can do with
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Acknowledgement of those things,
Right.
yes,
Right.
most
The
importantly.
conclusion. What point are you at?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in your practice, you learned from somebody specifically how to do yoga. But then there's another step, which is to learn how to instruct. Is that kind of the process? It goes from like student
That's a good
to
question.
becoming a teacher.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge education involved in becoming a teacher, but it depends on the type of yoga teacher you want to be.
Hmm.
So you can be what's called an asana teacher or a pose instructor, someone that's really into what poses are specifically good for what.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of philosophy involved in that. It's more functional, and there's definitely benefits in it. Then there's the type of yoga that you want to learn philosophy and history, and then the mental side of why choose those poses, or are those poses really the right ones?
Hmm.
I tend to go along that school of thought. I like the idea of bringing in philosophy, psychology. I've studied all of that for many, many years. The yoga philosophy, yoga psychology, and the realizing that there's not one prescriptive way. Like, let's say you come to me as a yoga therapy client and you have a bad back.
Right.
Sure, there are certain poses that specifically will help your back that a regular 200-hour trained yoga teacher could help you with. But somebody that's been trained on a level that I've been trained at, I would ask you all kinds of detailed questions. Have you ever had this before? What could have caused this? And let's explore poses that may or may not work for you, because it's you can't pigeonhole your yoga practice when it comes to one-on-one. And when I realized that's the kind of yoga teacher I wanted to be, then I went to that school of thought. And
Yeah.
I went to a teacher that taught me philosophy and then the breakdown how to work stages of a yoga practice.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like a
So
very
theme and
rounded.
intention.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
Very progressive
right.
in the yoga world. Yeah.
Now, are there levels to that? Much
As far
like in
as
martial arts, there's different belts that you accomplish.
yeah, I guess you could look at the hours as such. So
Oh,
there's the
okay.
200-hour yoga teacher training, that's baseline training.
Yeah.
You get 200 hours in under your belt, no pun intended. And you can go be a yoga teacher, and a studio will be happy to hire you, and you probably have a good framework of this one way of teaching this class, and these certain poses, a certain sequence, and you just keep repeating that over and over again.
Right.
It's a great place to begin. But then there's a 500-hour program, then 800-hour programs,
Hmm.
1,000-hour programs, and so forth. So yeah, there are definitely levels.
Okay. And is that orchestrated through a specific institute or
Yes.
community or society?
Yeah, so the big umbrella company is the IAYT, the International Association of Yoga Therapists, and then the studio that I work for currently, and that I've been with for many, many years, and who I got all of my levels of training under, for Yoga Life Institute with Bob Butera and Kristen Butera, and myself. I'm a lead teacher with them as the yoga teaching team, and the Yoga Life Institute yoga therapy and teacher training programs are realized under the IAYT, also the registered yoga teacher training
Hmm.
program as well. And there's all different levels that you could do your 200 hours, your 500 hours, your 800 hours with Yoga Life.
Okay.
Yes. And they're very philosophy and psychology oriented. So you get the whole rounded
Yeah.
spectrum of yoga.
Well, I see the benefit there because we're a very complex but also very simple species, and when we hear something, it needs to make sense on a lot of different levels. I think to really sink in. This is my generalization, at least for me. I want to hear the information a couple different ways so that I really
Mm.
grasp the concept, the energy behind it, the idea, the philosophy, and also the mechanics. You know, to really get into whatever it might be. And with yoga, I would assume I'd want that same kind of backing of kind of like that physical understanding.
You actually described very well the way that I learn. So I am dyslexic
Hmm.
naturally, uh, but I'm an absorber. So as you just mentioned, this repetition that you're
Right.
speaking of, I want to hear it in different ways. That's exactly how I learn. That's what I do love about yoga training. It's a full body, it's an embodiment of education. It's not just intellect. We're talking all systems are on board.
Right.
Everything gets involved because your body gets involved in the education, in the philosophy, in the psychology. It's not just theory. It's let's get include the physical systems.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you enough how powerful it is, that repetition factor. And I turned what used to be kind of like a little bit of an embarrassment, something I would never normally want to admit to people that I'm dyslexic, but now I'm proud of it
Right.
because the dyslexic ones are usually there's really smart ones out there because they have done so much work. I
Right.
know the work that I've done to absorb the information to make sure that I have it and then it's mine.
Yeah.
And to what you were saying, making something simple, Einstein said, you have to know something well enough to make it simple. If
Right.
you want to, and you have to know it really, really well. So that's exactly what I've done. And every time I have a training session, every time I teach a yoga therapy weekend, and they all have different themed weekends, like we have the neurological weekends and we have our heart weekends and, our skeletal system weekends and so forth. And I'm constantly studying still, even everything that I already have in my whole nervous system, it still forces me to go out there and continue to study and follow very intelligent people and absorb the information.
Yeah, that's
So I,
great.
I agree with you completely.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I see the skeletons in the background, the skeleton in the skull.
Yeah, that's Paul. This is actually, sorry, I'm
Yeah,
weird with
backwards.
the. This is Paul 2
Okay.
because Paul 1 has been destroyed by me using him, and limbs started to fall off, and showing the students how we can function with the hips, and
Right.
and then that's Paulette, and she's the one that helps me with our neurological weekends when we talk about the brain and the
Hmm.
nerves.
Yeah, it's very important information to know, especially if you're going to be doing body work, and even more so if you're training trainers, that they
Yes.
know kind of a basics of how the mechanics of the body work. They know what's happening with a student if the student comes in with a bad hip, something like that. How they might be able to adjust their practice to fit along with that hip. Is that kind of the idea?
That's the whole point of why we don't do prescriptive work
Mm-hmm.
because we're not doctors, we're not physical therapists, but we have such a wide range of understanding of the functionality of the body. Yoga therapists who graduate from the program have this huge range of education and knowledge now and resources because we're not asking anybody to remember all of this stuff. It's not the way that works. But you have all these resources now. You have each other, the cohorts in the class together, who have all different ranges of capabilities and skills and different medical. And we have psychologists, psychiatrists, we have nurses and doctors, and all joining these programs because yoga is becoming more and more the holistic approach to life.
Yeah.
The Western medicine, I want them when there's a bite, when I break something, when there's a heart attack, when there's something extreme going on, I want the Western doctors on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Eastern philosophy, however, what they do best is that care. It's the personal care. It's before let's take care of ourselves. Let's know what causes the stresses so you don't have that heart attack.
Yeah.
So you don't need to go rush to the doctor and need to get the surgery. How do we take care of this? And then post care. Then okay, well now we have to work on your stress levels because this is not good for your heart. So
Yeah.
now how do we do that? So and we know how to cater to the individual. That's the real key to the education of a yoga teacher, a well-educated yoga teacher and yoga therapist is everybody's different and everybody's body's different every single day. So let's take care of what's going on today and let's be aware of it and make that awareness known and bridge those gaps once again.
Right. Kind of understand what their range of motion might be,
Yeah.
and just, but of course, a strong backing of anatomy that goes a long way for understanding how things move, how muscles work.
Yes.
How muscles constrict or contract, and how they stretch. The tendon. Do you have to learn all of that? Is it like anatomy 101? Tendons,
Yeah,
where
we
they connect,
learn.
the connecting origination and insertion points, all that.
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
Not anything quite that intricate. That's very personal trainer type stuff. I personally know that stuff because of my background, but the students aren't expected to know that.
Yeah.
It's the functionality part of it. That's the global functionality is part of the education is well, let's teach the client and the student to quiet the mind enough that they can listen to
Mm.
what's actually really best.
Mm-hmm.
And because most things cause a stress, it's a natural, we live in most human beings live in, I like to call the time machine brain. We live
Yeah.
forward, we live tomorrow, or we live yesterday.
Right. Right.
So this idea of living in the present moment, and what comes with that psychologically is the tomorrow is very anxious based. The yesterday is kind of depressed based.
Yeah.
So you're always in a state of sorry and worry.
Right.
Tomorrow's the worry and yesterday is the sorry. So um, we usually live perpetually vacillating between these two extremes, and what's really going on and the effects it's having on us is lost because you can't sense and feel your senses in the extreme. It doesn't exist. What the yoga therapy program does is it helps you find all different possible ways to slow this down.
Mm-hmm.
How do you slow the nervous system down? How do you slow the mind? How do you slow your movement? How do you slow your understanding of everything, your assumptions? My God, the assumptions, I don't have to go over the old saying about assumptions.
Assume.
So
Yeah.
the makes an ass out of you and
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and the asshole part, excuse my language, but
Right.
but it's true. Everybody has one and they all stink.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these assumptions that the people have, my apologies for my language.
No, you're all good.
So the that's my Philadelphia in me, the
Yeah.
straight delivery. It's
Yeah. It's
hard to
all
get rid
good.
of that. But that perspective is where we tend to get lost in. And then that perspective of these assumptions that we're making and we're living in these extremes and this is where it becomes scary. It becomes a belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it becomes a belief system, that's hard to get rid of. Then
Yeah.
that creates a big effect in our body
Right.
when our belief system is not really clear. And these reactionary moments are then turned into identities of who we are rather than moments that we're having.
Mm. Yeah. For those that are a little bit more amenable or changeable to their environment, to those around them, a lot of that, there's not a lot of concrete lines drawn, and that can be very helpful in that method or approach to life and living, kind of being more fluid, allows for a little bit more of change to intersect and for the person to say, oh, okay, I have new information. That belief that I had, that bad, that thing that I thought I had created a house on, I realized it's not solid. It's not there. And the ability to change, then, of course, is also the ability to dispel that hold that can have on us, the bad belief, that bad or that construct that we maybe put a lot of faith or trust in. That's the thing. I think if we get really fixed and rigid, and this probably goes right into the idea with yoga to become more pliable. If we get really fixed and rigid in our thoughts and in our ideas and concepts, and we're locked in, we're forgetting about all these other possibilities, and then that can kind of get us stuck and maybe give us some really bad experiences because of our rigidity or inability to be more mutable.
Well said, and it's very true. My anatomy professor always says, always, and he's always in my mind. And this phrase, what you're just saying, is the phrase, movement is medicine.
Yeah.
And you were just mentioning being stuck and being rigid. Those two are huge words that most people do live in. This, I just don't know anyhow, how else can I feel?
Yeah.
I have to feel this way. How could I feel anything else when there's a host of possibilities that would be a lot better?
Yeah.
Or how could I only react this way? I have to react this way. There's no other way to react, but yes, there is.
Right.
And when you're not stuck in that rigidity and you realize the movement, and it's the movement of the body, it's the movement of the breathing, because that's the first thing we talk about. Yoga, we'll talk about yoga 101 is as soon as I have somebody sitting with me privately, the first thing we do is go over breathing,
Hmm.
because the breathing is the huge builder of that bridge to bridge the gap, that crevasse that our mind body lives lost between one another or lost from one another. That the breathing is a huge portion of that stress control, stress reliever, um, calming the body, calming the brain, calming the entire all the tissues of the body. It helps to settle all the peripheral nervous system, the central nervous system, and so forth. The breath is a huge, huge tool, and you've got to learn these things and utilize them over and over again. So even just breathing and learning how to do that moves the mind. So then you have movement again. So not only just movement in yoga poses and doing different directions of the spinal movement or whatnot, but you add breath to that, and it turns this into really, it's a magical tool, the yoga practice, as opposed to just calisthenics that goes
Right.
on with otherwise if you don't unite the breath in this process. And that movement is medicine part is everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
flexibility. Oh no, it is longevity is a flexible spine, I believe is the
Oh,
saying, something like
very
that.
true. Yep.
Um, and
And good grip.
and good
Hand
grip.
grip is longevity too.
Uh,
Yeah, keep that in mind.
uh-huh.
Just for those that are listening, keep that in mind. You want to have your hands and forearms be very, very strong. It's actually very linked to longevity.
Oh, is that true? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, in what way does meditation play a role in yoga? Now, I know I've been to quite a few yoga studios, and many of them will end with meditation um, as part of the sequence. That there's a stillness afterward. What, as far as teaching that, what is the direct benefit to the meditation? Whether it's a full act of, full on meditative practice, or just a supplemental that comes into play during the or after the poses, or what way would you say is the purpose of implementing meditation into the practice?
So yoga and meditation were created for one major purpose. And we're talking thousands of years ago that this was realized, to quiet the mind, slow it down, back to even the earlier part of our conversation, that our minds are moving at such extreme, and they're bombarded constantly. And now social media is being what they do. Boy, does it take an impact, that our nervous system takes this micro traumas that
Hmm.
are happening with the scrolling and the
Oh yeah.
scrolling and scrolling, and we don't realize it. And this is like a thing now that they're starting to do research on, these micro traumas that are happening in the brain and in the nervous system. And so it's more important now than ever for some form of meditation, meaning that there's not just one way to meditate. Whatever it is that you can do. And the gentleman that I work with and work for, Bob Butera, he even wrote a book all about it, Meditating for Your Life, and so forth, because there's this you some people might get benefit from meditating walking in the forest. Some people might get benefit from meditating doing their yoga practice. Our modern world is so loud and
Hmm.
so noisy that we sometimes actually have to get the body moving before we can ask the mind to settle down. If we try to sit, if we go, have our coffee, eat our sugar, have a stressed day, bombard our nervous system through social media, so on and so forth, and then we're just going to sit quietly, it's never going to happen. So you have to really, there's a lot of care that goes into having a proper meditation practice. So it's not even just the meditation practice itself, it's everything that you have to do to be able to have one. So it's actually one of the hardest things for most people. Most of my students come to me over the years. The biggest struggles I've heard about them have been, I can't meditate, or I don't have a meditation practice, and I feel like a fraud as a yoga teacher
Mm,
that I don't have a meditation practice.
right.
And this conversation, as you and I are having, comes up, and I take it out an opportunity to remind them that meditation comes in many forms. The purpose of meditation, to your question, is to just bring that quietness, to take us from those extremes of the yesterday and tomorrow and the extremes of our nervous system that it goes through with that, to just bring yourself into a quiet space over and over and over again. And it needs repetition. That's where the repeating and that dyslexic brain of mine worked in my favor. Keep coming back to it. It wasn't laborious for me. Oh, my mind is going again. I got to come back to it. Keep coming back, keep coming back. And you just create these different practices and tools to help your whole system settle, to be quiet, and so that your mind can stay in the present moment. And that's leads us into meditation, but it's a host of self-care to be able to do it. So it's a whole lifestyle shift that happens. You can go live the life that you want, but if meditation and yoga is really important to you, you'll see things just fall away naturally that doesn't serve the purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of realigns
Yeah.
to what's most beneficial. And I think it does it in a subtle way that you don't really realize is happening, but find yourself avoiding situations that would cause more disharmony, just as a natural course, trying to maintain that meditative state, not necessarily actively, you know, in waking state, but you know, within the space of time. If you have a meditative practice, at least for myself, it's helped me to eliminate things that would be considered overly distractive and potentially caustic or harmful. That was one benefit for me that came about in doing more meditation. Now,
How did you come to your meditation, if I may
well,
ask?
through dreaming,
Mm.
through a dream practice, I was trying to build my dream practice up, and was trying to do more lucid dreams. And my mom told me that what she did in the morning, she would wake up really early and then she would just meditate in the morning. I don't know exactly what she was doing as far as her meditation went, or what her designs were, but that's when she did it. And I thought, well, that's a great time to do it. Be before I have to wake up or before I wake up, because it's that space of time that's still mine and it's very quiet. And so I utilized meditation to develop a little bit more of the lucid dreaming, so that when I'd wake up, I'd actually just work a switch so that I would wake up before my alarm would wake up or wake me up, but have a little bit of time prior to actually having to get up to meditate through the processes of whatever was going on in my head at the moment. Just kind of sort and let things, come and go as they will. And am not. My schedule's absolutely bonkers right now with sleep, so I'm not able to do it nearly as much as I'd like to. But it's always there. I'll always get up about 15 to even 5 minutes before my alarm. Either one of those is just great for allowing me some still time to let the things happen as they are and not as I want them to be. I found that
Mm.
allowing that lucid state, allowing an interplay, uh, created a more of a holodeck kind of um, a holodeck appearance in the meditation, so that I could be a little bit more active in the lucid state, but also get benefits of being in a meditative alpha wave type of state, or just below, in the high theta. And yeah, definitely some benefit there. I also like to walk in the woods for meditation.
Yeah.
For me, that I get a lot off of trees. So if I can get around trees, I'm pretty happy. Um,
Well, they purify your energy, certainly. That the whole concept, I'm sure you heard of the earthing
yeah.
concept, to get your skin next to as much nature as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
So those that live on the coastlines and they're in water, and they're surfing out there in the waters, it's beautiful. They get a chance to be there all the time. It's not as easy though when it's we have winters here in Pennsylvania. You're not going to be going outside
Right.
barefoot. You're not going to be going,
Right.
that kind of thing. So yeah, that's wonderful. I bet it does help a lot.
Yeah. Well, I had studied one book, and boy, I think it was on meditation for the abdomen, and it was by Mantak Chia, And in it, he talked a lot about like a Thai approach to energy work. And one of them is sitting with trees, various sizes, and like you were saying, to breathe with the tree and to kind of sense or become enveloped by the tree, and what you're breathing out, they're breathing in, what you're breathing in, they're breathing out, that kind of thing, that relationship that's natural between the trees and people. Just to sit with a tree is it's a magical thing.
It is. I was fortunate enough to go to Costa Rica three
Hmm.
times, and the last two times I went, I visited this really beautiful rainforest mountain, and just there was waterfalls everywhere and trees of all kinds. And I just, even just looking at the green, all the many different greens,
Hmm.
the muddy ground,
Yeah.
the weeping walls of water. Trees speak to one another just like human beings do. So
Yeah.
the fact that you gather that up naturally is amazing and wonderful. And I'm glad that you do it, because they've done even studies that the roots
Hmm.
of the trees are speaking to one another underground, and that's how they know how to help one another grow. And it's all part of that language, the um, non-human language,
Hmm.
sensory language. I will remind my students sometimes that the body speaks in the language of sensation, not in words.
Right.
So it's that learning how to listen to that sensation. It sounds like that's what you're doing
Yeah.
with the trees, is that you're kind of ebbing and flowing with their breathing and with yours.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
I mean, it's I feel like they're really easy to get in touch with, trees, but that might be just my predilection for trees. I'm not sure. I know when I was really young, when I was a teenager, I read J.R.R. Tolkien, and he had
Mm,
Ents, the tree people, and this is before I had any kind of awareness, extending into this, the tree lore. But in there, it was the trees were alive, some of them, and they took care of the other trees, and they had a language. They were very slow and gradual, and now now that we're in this modern era, we have all this great information available to us. We find out it's not too far off. you know, not too far off.
not at all. If anything,
No.
we still don't know enough.
Oh yeah.
I think the trees have so much more to say that we have yet to learn.
We may not be listening.
So
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
might be right.
Yeah.
That's the new unity. We have to unite that language understanding and
Yeah.
listen a little bit harder.
Yeah.
I
Well,
agree
we need
completely.
to probably begin with the other mammals first, because that's probably the easiest way for us to communicate. Get close to other animals. People have a very interesting, close relationship, or a lot of people with their pets, and that's
Yes, they
probably
do.
the first approach that people can get to a species outside of their own that they can communicate with, and then that can extend to a horse. That can extend to other species of animals. Um, Plants can maybe be a far jump for people, but it is to me the trees are extremely approachable and seem to like the company, so that's nice too.
They do, and I appreciate your approach on that. And there's a lot more studies going on right now when it comes to our human emotions by listening to animals' emotions and
Hmm.
paying attention to how they respond to life, as we do.
Yeah.
That information that they get bombarded with as well.
Right.
So I agree with you. There's definitely something there as far as paying attention to our
Yeah.
little fur babies more than the fact that they're incredibly cute.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I've heard a lot in regards to meditation specifically, and I would imagine yoga plays a part in that too, because it's a form of, to me, it's a form of like body meditation in a sense, to kind of
Yes.
drone out the body's senses. That there are some kind of heightened states that can come about from the practice, um, possibly some extra sensory um, benefit. Have you experienced anything like that, or do you know of others that maybe have gained some kind of extra talent out of their practice?
Boy, that's a really, really big statement, and
Yeah.
that's a hard one.
Mm.
If anybody did, then it's not real. I'll put it to you that way.
Okay.
Because what you're speaking of is this one consciousness with the universe. In the yoga language, it's called samadhi. And this concept of samadhi or ecstasy or the complete unity of the universal energy, you don't even really talk about it. That's something so personal. And it's not anything that you can train for.
Right.
This is another thing like meditation. So if you look at the Eightfold Path of Yoga, there's something called the Ashtanga Eightfold Path of Yoga, not just Ashtanga, the physical. There's a physical yoga practice called Ashtanga Yoga that goes back um, a few hundred years, and it's very athletic and it
Mm.
has these specific systems. Power Yoga was born of it. Vinyasa Yoga was born of it.
Right.
But the theory of Ashtanga Yoga, the Eightfold Path, this deals with observances and restraints, like the 10 commandments of yoga.
Yeah.
How do you take care of yourself, your family, your friends, your internal and external worlds? Then you talk about yoga poses, breathing. Then there's this concentration. And then the last bits of this list, this Eightfold Path, the last four, is this concept of concentration, meditation. Well, it's preparing for it. So you have your breathing, concentration, meditation, and then the ecstasy, the samadhi
Mm.
concept.
Mm-hmm.
The concentration is a way to lead into meditation. Meditation is a way to lead into that samadhic state.
Right. Kind of a path.
Just like I was meant, yeah, that incredible, it's beyond oneness. Like when it comes to meditation, we're talking about coming to this one pointedness. You're just, it's the idea, if you use the image of a dripping water from a faucet
Mm.
and you follow the drip, like you imagine the faucet dripping water, and you could see the water coming out and falling to the sink, and then turn that into one stream, and there's just no stopping. It's just this ongoing oneness,
Mm.
one stream of consciousness. Samadhi would be there's nothing. The water doesn't even exist. It's so big, it's so beyond our human capabilities for anyone to say, well, I've done meditation enough that I can float or that I
Something
can,
like that. Right.
there, remember I don't know if you remember it, but the incredible, I forget the name of it, but that one show, That's Incredible. I think
Mm-hmm.
that was the name of it. They had the yogi get into the box, and he would stay inside this box, and you'd see the box condensating, and he was able to stay inside this box breathing through all of his pores for an hour. That's a practicing thing. It's just kind of like a sideshow
You're
thing.
right. Right.
Any kind of big deal that anybody could do or some special power, it's subtle. It's so subtle. It's so personal. It's so deep. It's something that no one else in the world would ever really even know to look for.
Right.
It's something that you have. It's this amazing connecting moment that cannot be spoken of, that can't be expressed, that can't, not because you're not allowed to, it's just, it can't be. It's
Non-expressible.
beyond words.
Yeah.
It's unexpressible.
It's kind of being, from my understanding of it, in the guru sense, and I mean that as direct to the source as possible. In just that statement, the guru being somebody that was of a lineage, of a practice that, it's hard to, again, what are we talking about exactly? But that touched
In
the
the simplest
infinite.
terms, they're a teacher, the guru.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'd be that lineage of teaching this one practice. And the idea that I understand as far as what that is that somewhere along that chain of teachers, one of them had achieved samadhi, or some sense got close to it, close enough that they now vibrated at a closer to infinite type of energy. I'm trying to use most general words as possible. Um, so they embodied it in a sense because they were touched by infinity. Let's just say it like that. And so anybody they taught, these disciples, would also, by being in the vicinity of the guru, also may, depending on if the guru blessed them or whatever, or touched them, embody something similar to that. through the practice. But the practice to maintain that, I think, is pretty rigorous, from what I understand. To maintain that kind of samadhi.
It can't be maintained. It's impossible to do. You can't live a normal life. They have two different types of yogis from over the years.
Yeah.
The renunciated yogi, they're the ones that went into the caves looking to live that samadhic
Right.
state all the time. And then the householder yogi, which is us,
Yeah.
us people who live lives and pay bills and have families and so forth. And have you ever heard of Eckhart Tolle? He wrote a
Yeah.
book, quite a few different books, and Power of Now. And um, that's a lot of what he spoke of, that he was having that kind of amazing oneness moment where he sat on the bench for 4 months doing nothing, just loving the fact that he's alive.
Yeah.
Now, he had a luxury because he had some money that he could go sit on that bench for 4 months and not worry about paying those bills.
Right.
We have to think about the balance of real life stuff when it comes
Yeah.
to the reality. And I'm very much of a school of thought of logic and what makes most sense in daily living. And samadhi is way personal. It
Right.
is such a personal experience. It's not anything that can be, as we were talking about, that can be expressed really. But it's also something that you can't just constantly be in samadhi. But what it does, if you have those moments, if they happen upon you, which is what is the way it really is done, you're just all of a sudden you're in
Right.
this completely consumed moment. And it can come in many, many different forms. It's peak experiences can be part of that. And when you're in this peak experience and you're having this incredibly sensory peak experience in that space, you can't live like that all the time. You still have to then go about your business. But what it does is it changes your view each time. Every time you go there, there's this different view you have now, a different understanding. You've seen between the curtain just a little bit more, possibly. This could be the ongoing samadhi concept in daily life.
Right.
Maybe not in that wonderful ecstasy moment, but in functionality and making it a part of your everyday life. Above all else, now this is the part that people have a hard time with. You cannot get there, though, just like we talked about. You have to live a good life to have a good meditation practice.
Right.
And you have to have a really good meditation practice to have a samadhic moment happen upon you.
Right.
So this is a whole kind of domino effect of a lifestyle that we're not going to just walk around and just,
Yeah.
have whatever we want to have, partake in whatever we want to partake, and be like,
Yeah.
yo, let's have a samadhi moment, man. It just doesn't work that way. I wish it was that easy, but it's not.
Wouldn't that be
I mean, you
something?
can't smoke something and be like, man, I'm in samadhi.
Right.
So it's I can't drink something and think that. So.
Yeah. I believe it was the Beatles that went to the guru and they gave him LSD and said, we found instant enlightenment. And he ate the LSD, and then for the next however many hours explained to them that there was no instant enlightenment, there was no easy path.
Even on the ecstasy, even on the LSD. Yes,
right.
Exactly.
There's just there is no shortcut. There's just only the way, and that is full discipline. And even that, like you said, the infinite isn't something that we're talking about, the infinite, and so then we're out of the range of what we can conceive. Mostly what we can experience is all going to fall under the finite, and it's going to fall under human potential. And it's not going to be anything outside of what we couldn't normally do in any other regard. It's that idea of touching it, of getting close to it, getting that sense of it, becoming enlightened, if you want to use that term, which is really loaded. But like you said, then you have to wake up. You have to go to work. You're not maintaining.
You're going to get stressed.
Yeah.
And you're going to get stressed,
right.
And you have to know that that's where the somatic or the meditative discipline is working in your favor, is when you're in the throes of that stress, and it can get pretty stressful. I mean, life does what it does, and things can get pretty dark for people. But even in that darkness, if there is one glimmer of, okay, I know that this is temporary. I know that as everything in life, it passes. And I know this is just where I am right now. It's not on my identity. It's not my belief system. That I have tools to remind me I can trust myself, and I can trust the, the energies that be, that this experience is happening and I can learn from it. And let me learn from it and then move on and let that time pass. Everything ebbs and flows. Emotions come and go, all of them. The great ones do too. That's the hard part for a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
Happiness comes and goes. You can't be happy all the time. It doesn't
Right.
work that way. So that's where a lot of people get caught up in the key to life is to be happy. Well, I no, it's not really.
It isn't.
If you're
Right.
always searching for happiness, you're going to be disappointed constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've expounded on the key to life and the meaning of life, and it's super simple in my understanding. And again, I fall in that rational sense. It has to make sense to me, otherwise, I don't know that it's real. It has to make some kind of common sense. It has to reason with myself in that way. And life, if you put any kind of anything on it, then you're past what life is. The meaning is to be happy. Well, no, actually, that's saying that there is a purpose like that. That's part of life, and your happiness is not somebody else's. The meaning is just to live. It's real easy. It's just so simple.
I mean, really, to experience exactly what it is that you have right now and your capabilities
Yeah.
and enjoy them if possible.
Right.
Enjoy them. God forbid. God forbid.
Yeah.
We should actually enjoy what we
It could
have
happen.
available to us. Yeah.
Energy
Good.
is sequence. It's a sequence, and
Hmm.
if you have happiness, you only know happiness because you know the other part. You only know fear, because you know
Hmm.
safety. You only know one because you know the other, and it's only happening in a sequence. And I think that for me, I see cycles in certain parts of my life fairly easily, and I know that there's cycles in other parts
Hmm.
um, that I don't recognize, that I just have to like kind of live and experience until it's pounded into my head. Get it into your head. It's going to happen again. But I have the ability to break that
What you're
chain.
mentioning is sorry, my
Yep.
this eventually I'm gonna learn from my own yoga and just take this out of my ear instead of messing with it, but we'll see if I can leave it there for now. What you're mentioning a lot of is acknowledgement, and
Yeah.
that's what most people get afraid to do, is to acknowledge even that darker side of us. And we have ugly thoughts, and I
Yeah.
curse and I say things that may offend people, and I try not to. I'm in a world I'm made to be very, very cautious and careful and respect others and so forth, but I can't please everyone.
Right.
But acknowledging all of that can also allow you to calm the ego down and say, okay, that is a part of me. That is a part of who I am. Let's see how that works.
Mm.
Again, what have I learned from that now? That's the big one that a lot of people have a hard time with. It's okay if you got a little bit ugly, a little bit crazy. Did you learn from it though?
Right.
And are you
Reflection.
gonna continue to learn from it? Yeah.
Yeah. Self-reflection.
Yeah.
That's one of the benefits. The you mentioned something that reminded me of a story that I'd heard. I think it was a tale in a novel. So somebody was saying it in a novel that I was reading, but it was a really good something that stuck with me. It's kind of like a mental mantra whenever you get into a sticky situation or you're becoming overwhelmed by the experience of life. The story was about a monk or a practicing yogi of some sort, a meditator, and maybe he was a Buddhist. I'm not really sure. And he was going, and he found this mantra that worked to get him all the way to the gates of what is the highest in Buddhism, um, the gates, the bridge basically where Maya, the god of illusion, lived. And the mantra was all is in transition. All is in transition. So anything would come to this person, they could just say all is in transition, and that's helped them to achieve near nirvana, right?
Hmm.
But they would get to the bridge, or they get to that part where the Lord of Illusion was, and Lord of Illusion would turn him into, like reincarnate him into a different person, and he'd be this different person, and he'd live this life, and then he heard Buddhists go by saying in transition, all is in transition, and he remembered, oh yes, all is in transition. And then again, got close to nirvana, and then got thrown back down and reincarnated into a different different vessel of some sort, more challenges, and then heard that mantra, all is in transition. And I think that's just in life, again, like being like water, being pliable, being flexible, that so many things come up, and it's all about us recognizing whatever tools we can gain from different systems, whether it be meditation, practice, yoga, that knowing that that reflection is really important, so we don't do it over and over again, but that whatever it is, it'll change. It's almost
Hmm.
a, a definitive guarantee, which is really hard to do, is that it will change from some form or another. And the key would be to guide that change to the highest and best for yourself, right?
To trust it,
Yeah,
to trust that it's there, and to trust that even if you can't see it, it's faith, really. I
yeah.
mean, that's when we start to tap back into our higher power, is in that faith factor. Um, do you know that parable of the wise man in the village when his 14-year-old son, grandson, gets a horse? It's the "we'll see" parable. So
I don't know it.
the wise man in the village, the his grandson receives a horse for his birthday. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. All the villagers come by and they go to the wise man, like, this is fantastic. What a wonderful blessing. What a great thing that your grandson has this horse. And the wise man says, we'll see. And then, of course,
Right.
the grandson is on the horse and he falls off the horse and breaks his leg. And of course, all the villagers come around. Oh my goodness, we're so sorry. This is such a shame. Whoa, we're so sorry. What happened to your grandson? This is so terrible. We'll see.
Yeah, right.
Oh, the other villagers, they're on the other village, the war breaks out,
Mm,
and there's all these other guys coming in to take the young men from the village to go fight in war. But his grandson couldn't go because his leg was broken.
hmm.
And then, of course, all the villagers, oh my God, this is amazing. He didn't have to go because he broke. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Exactly, and that goes
Yeah.
into another practice that I have, which is when I get stressed out on something, typically an agenda. I need to be somewhere, traffic, something is delaying my desire or for the accomplishment of whatever I have thought that that's where I need to be. When I have to succumb to the fact that I'm not going to get what I want, that's kind of where my mind falls back, is that I could have just been saved from a car accident. I have no idea what purpose. I can only trust that I'm where I need to be in the moment, and and it's probably to the benefit. And even if I'm in a car accident, maybe the benefit then is that I didn't die or get maimed in some way or whatever. There's always a variable to it that you don't know what the other options were, and we should be thankful and grateful for the opportunity as we got it. Maybe we didn't listen
When
when we
you
should have,
can, yeah, when you can quell that ego, the ego language, which is the narrowed scope language, the I, me, you,
Right.
they, them language.
Mm.
Um, yeah, changes can be made, things can be realized for sure, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's real
The
tough.
ego wants to be validated constantly.
Right.
You know, somebody, imagine having a conversation oh my God, imagine having an argument with someone and take the words you, I, and me out of the equation
Mm.
and see how your language changes.
Yeah. It's hard to have an argument.
That's exactly.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
there you go. It's
Right.
neutralized, done.
Yeah, it
So,
wipes it out.
yeah, it does.
Yeah, and another thing is like that mirror. I see it a lot in politics. One side is always mirroring the other and blaming them for the same thing that they're doing. It's like this mirror thing that happens. That's often I see it in arguments, in debate. There's this mirroring that's like both saying the exact same thing. You know?
And it's a complete projection. You
Yeah,
know,
a projection, right?
a lot of times what people most likely will call other people out on, I look at, I've turned projection into confession,
Mm,
just
mm,
like I've turned procrastination into processing.
mm.
I'm no longer a procrastinator, because I'm not. Some people will call me that. If you see the way that I do my work and study and prepare for a weekend, it may look like a procrastination, But I don't. What I do is I process the information. I have it. I say to myself, it's that dyslexic brain of mine that I've now found this new way. I have to do it this way.
Hmm.
And then on that 11th hour, I put the program together. I get it. It makes a lot of sense, but it's now a part of me.
Yeah.
So, but when it comes to that projection concept, usually now I've turned it into confession. When I hear someone, oh, that person is blah, 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 or I bet you they're da, 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 or whatever they're gossiping about in that moment,
Right.
most likely, the old saying about pointing a finger, when you point a finger at someone, there's three pointing back at you.
Hmm.
So they're confessing to something if
Yeah.
they're projecting onto
I
something.
like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, in your practice, your teaching practice, you do sessions with people. As far as the training goes, you do it all through Zoom
As of right now, when it comes to the education, because I work as the lead teacher at Yoga Life Institute online, and it's all online.
online.
They were brick and mortar for many, many, many years. And Bob, uh, I call him my yoga dude because he was my original teacher,
Okay.
and now I work with him and teach with him. That he was like the first yoga dude in the area, and like I said, he was doing that magazine and
Yeah.
so forth. So yeah, he's been brick and mortar forever. But then COVID came, and since Yoga Life was a very, 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 very strong and potent program and school, that they made it fine. They were able to transition online,
Wow.
and they are very, very much online. Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
great.
all the big educations are online, but I teach at my gym in person, and I teach online in one-on-one with people, myself in my own space, or I'll go to your home,
Hmm.
and that's usually how I'll work that.
Mobile. Yeah. So
Yeah,
if somebody
exactly.
listening wants to start the practice and get the hours, I guess, is that how it would work?
Absolutely. They feel free to email me or contact me. At 484-432-3269 is my number. You could text me. My email address, erica.tenenbaum@aol.com. Please don't judge me for having an AOL address. It just shows you
Yeah.
how loyal I am, that I've had it since I was dial up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, but it's just stuck with me. It's just what I'm used to. So, but yeah, absolutely. And I work with people I worked with someone from Ireland. I've
Hmm.
worked with someone from Seattle. So the brilliance of online is we can unite people from all around, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It's definitely
Yeah,
it's the good and the bad that came out of COVID situation was that more people were pushed into developing their ability to get online with a camera. And then of course that
thank
also
God.
means that more people were pushed online and out of the world. you know, it goes both ways. But for
It
teaching, it's
does.
fantastic because you can just
It's
reach everybody.
fantastic. And it's great for teaching. It's great for one-on-one stuff like this, working yoga therapy people with one-on-one. I mean, the fact that I've had these many, many years of experience and just going, because I remember for years, I was teaching weekly classes at the studio and going there and teaching multiple weekly classes, even when I've heard my cohorts over the years go, well, I've educated my way out of teaching weekly classes. There
Hmm.
was some of that snobbery involved. We're like, I'm smarter than just teaching a weekly, Saturday morning class or
Hmm.
something like that. And I just kept doing it and just kept teaching it. And I didn't stop. And what it ended up helping me do, which is what a lot of yoga teachers have a hard time with. I mean, granted, I have a lot of experience. It's time doing it is all about that.
Yeah.
And that plugging away, doing it over and over again, that dyslexic mind of mine, that repetition, it just drove this stuff into my nervous system in a way where I just sit and I can watch and I can watch you online and I don't have to go to the other side of my room and do the poses
Right.
so that you can do what I want you to do. I could say it to you with such detail
Yeah.
because I've been doing it for so long and I didn't educate my way out of teaching those yoga classes. I just kept using the language, watching bodies in motion and being able to sit and just cue and
Hmm.
not do. And so that has been able to transfer online for me brilliantly.
Right.
I realized a lot of my friends actually had a hard time with that because they were still stuck in the cueing and doing world where they'd
Hmm.
have to do the poses while cueing it. And then here you are on the computer screen, but then the computer screen's here and I'm trying to do my yoga practice over here and I can't see you. Like I can't say, hey, Sandy, right foot, change that position, whatever. And I can see all of that just by sitting here and
Right.
teaching.
Well,
Yeah,
you
it's been
kept in
great.
touch with the basics, and you
Yeah.
also learned lots and lots of people's approaches, and you learned it over and over again. So you really mastered the that first step that a lot of people take, which is to
Yes.
enter a studio unsure exactly what they're supposed to do or where they're supposed to, what the words mean, where they're
Mhm.
supposed to put their feet, and from zero to to 100%. Don't look at it like that. Um,
No, you
we'd
don't.
never
It's a
do,
0
but
to about 60%. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. It's well that
yeah,
you knew that.
yeah. I know. Well, always go high.
Hmm.
Well, we
Hmm.
want the 100, but that's our nice lofty goal that we
Yes.
may never achieve. But that zero of of knowledge base as to what they're doing, and finding the groove, that you maintained that connection. So you really developed the skill set to work with people that
And the
make you a
confidence
profound
in the
teacher.
language.
And the language is very
Honestly,
important. Yeah,
it's huge. It's
yeah,
everything that we have as yoga teachers is our language. So it's the confidence in the pacing of my language. Because in the beginning, oh my God, when I first started teaching yoga, I was speaking so fast. I was trying to
fast.
get it all out, everything I knew, all at once. I had to slow it down. And that's what experience and
Mm,
watching and doing. And as you mentioned, having all different perspectives coming, that I've just been sticking with the basics. Yeah, I'm all about that. That if
yeah,
the foundations, if
foundations,
you
right,
aren't strong in your foundations, it's not going to work.
right.
You're going to get lost.
And it makes you more a stronger teacher. You know, more of a
I
valuable
find
asset to the student.
compassionate,
Yeah,
too compassionate, because I realize from all these years, and this is where it goes back to where I can't do prescriptive yoga. It can't be prescribed when it comes to one-on-one stuff. I can't say, okay, so, your back problem, you can have a back problem in the same place I have a back problem. We can say we have sciatica issues, let's say down our right
mm-hmm.
leg. I'm going to approach your sciatica issue much different than I will approach mine. I'm not going to you shouldn't be doing the exact same poses I would be doing, the way that I would be doing them,
Right.
because other parts of your system is taking to that information differently. It's not just focusing in on that. Like a lot of time, physical therapy will focus in on the injured body part
Yeah,
and
right.
just therapize the injured body part. Whereas the yoga therapist, what they do is they look at the entire system as a whole and let's bring it together in harmony. How can we get movement in harmony? Where does harmony exist before it turns into pain? Are we aware of that pain? Is it serving us this way that we're doing it? That's the big question.
Mm,
Is it working for you? Does
yeah.
this serve your purpose?
The yoga therapy, I did massage therapy for a number of years, uh, heavily on the sports therapy. And is the yoga therapy kind of like a stretch approach, kind of what the PT does as far as the stretching goes, but with a more yoga perspective? Is it kind of zoning in to still harmonize the whole body with for a specific an outcome? Like
In
a
the most general statement, yes,
yeah,
you are looking for the entire system to be in harmony. Now, is it done with just stretching? Not necessarily.
right.
A lot of times, yoga actually can overstretch people. The concept of yoga poses.
Yeah.
The newer teachers or the newer people to yoga will go into it as, okay, so if we're going to do a hip practice today, I'm going to throw every single hip opener at you, and we're going to stretch the hell out of your hips.
Right, right,
That's not really very balanced, though.
right.
So, as far as I'm concerned, the way I would approach that would be, let's just get to know our hips. We're going to strengthen them, we're going to stabilize them, and we're going to make them flexible. So it's that whole wheel approach.
Mm,
Again,
okay.
not just one way of doing it. The whole wheel of fitness is involved.
Yeah. So is there active isolated type of stretching where you're isolating the muscle?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Whatever,
involved in
really,
that too.
whatever it takes
Yeah.
to getting the
Yeah, you
flexibility.
have isometric, you have those isometric contractions, eccentric, concentric. We go into all the different ways. Most yoga poses are that isotonic or isometric
Yeah.
contraction where you hold and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. But we can turn it into a strength training thing too, which I'm a big fan of. And I'm the big strength training yogi
Oh,
person, and I'm the one that teaches that one. And how do you bring strength training into your yoga practice?
yeah, which I think would be
You
very
know,
important. Yeah,
vital,
yeah.
absolutely vital.
For me, I've had quite a bit of slip discs issue in my
Mhm.
back, and I went to PT and I got what I needed to get out of it. Got the movements that I needed to do, and a lot of it was strengthening the muscles that support the bones in the area that you have the issue. Pretty simple,
Exactly.
you know.
Yep, it is really.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of doing it and being consistent about it. That's the part that's not simple.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. Make a practice of strengthening.
Yeah, exactly. The
And
discipline.
that's why I say I still have a bad back because
Mhm.
I gotta make that more consistent.
Yeah.
Do you, as far as for your students, do you continue to teach them over the course of time, or do you kind of, maintain like a practice with students that become teachers?
As much as I possibly can, I'm always open. I'm very proud to say that I've connected with hundreds and hundreds of students over the years, so it's
Yeah,
hard to stay
yeah,
in touch with all of them. But thank God for Facebook and
yeah.
Instagram, where I end up becoming very, very good friends with a lot of them. I remember one of my high school friends sent me an email and she said, "How the hell did you get all these friends?" I'm like, "They're my students. There." She's like, because she has what, I don't know, maybe 100, and I'll
Right.
have, I don't know, 700 or something. And there's so many of them are just students from over the years too that, I
Yeah.
mean, I was a teacher long before Facebook too, but
Right.
oh, in time now, this has been a wonderful way to actually stay connected and to stay connected on a business level too on Instagram. So that, because I've had quite a few of them in time, uh, message me, like,
Hmm.
"I've been thinking about you. I have a question, or I have a client I'd like to refer you to you." So that's been lovely. The social media that way has been great to keep that
Yeah.
going,
The network
keep
and
that connection going.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Nice. Yeah. The network, the community.
And where do you see your practice going in the next few years?
That is a great question. For years, as I was becoming a yoga teacher, I was also an esthetician for
Mm.
25 to 30 years. So,
Wow.
and I worked for a salon and I worked for a cosmetic surgeon, and I, do eyebrows and waxing and tinting and all kinds of skin. It's also part of my wheelhouse. I
Mm.
learned so much about our immune system through learning about the skin, and I've parlayed that into yoga training and so forth. So, the COVID also pushed me to create a concierge business
Mm.
where I go to your home and do my aesthetics practices too.
Oh.
I also do a massage therapy called manual lymphatic drainage
Oh yeah.
based on the movement and the stretching of the skin. So, yoga, lymphatic systems, immune systems, stretching, it all united and came together. So, what I'd like to see, considering that I have these really interesting skills and offerings for the one-on-one world, is to just keep increasing that and getting that voice out there, letting people know that that exists.
Mm-hmm.
And my facials are farm fresh facials. I do everything that, nothing touches your skin that you can't ingest.
Mm. Okay.
So I'm a big believer in, because your skin is a living organ. That's why
Right.
it's so important for us to do our earthing and to go talk to the trees
Yep.
and to get out into the nature. So our skin is alive and it absorbs everything that is connected to it. So whenever I do give these facials, or if I use, when I'm doing the massage, everything that's done is done under natural um, components.
Yeah.
My everything that my skincare process at home, even my own personal, is all food based, not like oils and vinegars and honey and oatmeal and
Yeah.
so on. So yeah, I
Yeah.
do that as well, and that's what I'd like to see continue to grow.
Awesome.
Online yoga therapy training, online yoga therapies business, as well as the concierge business.
Yeah. Kind of as a package deal.
Yeah, I could take care of you from the inside out or the outside in.
Right. Right. There you go.
Skincare and then internal care and that sort of thing.
Great. Yeah. And
Mhm.
could you say again your email address?
Of course. It's Erika, Erika dot Tenenbaum, Tenenbaum at AOL.com. And my telephone number is 484 432 3269. And feel free to text, email anytime.
Awesome. And then if they wanted to get in
Yeah.
touch with you on social media, do you have an outlet for that, or is that
Yeah, Facebook. I'm on
okay?
Facebook as Erika Tenenbaum. I'm also on Instagram. Um, I'm older, so I'm more on Facebook than I'm
Yeah.
on Instagram. But I know that's the other thing that I need to go to do a little bit more is Instagram. I forget what my name is on Instagram,
Oh,
but they're united now. So if you find me on
right.
Facebook, you should be able to find me on Instagram too, if I'm
Yeah,
not
I think
mistaken, if
so.
that's the way
Maybe
that
it's
works.
linked
So
linked in your
they are linked. I know because
bio or
anytime I put something up on Facebook, all of a sudden I see the likes coming in from Instagram
oh, interesting.
too.
Okay.
So, and then if I put something up on Instagram, I'll see the likes coming in on Facebook. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
it's
that's
linked.
pretty cool.
Yeah. So they do it.
I could
Awesome.
probably do a little bit more on Instagram than I am. I'm still learning about that kind of marketing, me being in my 50s now.
Yeah,
I
it's a whole thing.
it's still I'm still working on it. I feel like a child that way. So
Well, and that's a good. Always learning. That's the key.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Mhm.
Well, Erica, it was great having you on the show today,
Thank you
and
so much. It's
great
been wonderful.
hearing what you do and hearing your perspective, and great chat about meditation and yoga, and yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, good. Happy to be here. This was great. Thank you for inviting me so much, Nick.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.